being in Gitanagari with Radha Damodar and the cows and all the Vaishnavas is like the closest thing to being in Vrindavan. I don't know if you feel like that, but I feel like it. Very much at home in Vrindavan Dham, next to Vrindavan Dham, just neighbors. Our topic is on the screen. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, the refuge for the age of Kali. We heard yesterday about the Srimad Bhagavatam appeared shortly after Krishna's disappearance. Krishna was like the sun giving scorching heat, and after the scorching heat sun set, the brilliant as the sun, cooling as the moon, Bhagavatam appeared to give light in this dark age of Kali. Now we're moving on from Canto 1, Chapter 3 to Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 18, where there's emphasis on Bhagavata Seva. Bhagavata is derived from Bhagavan, and Bhagavata is the book or the person Bhagavat. Bhagavat and Bhagavata. Person and book. We'll spend some time discussing these two. One is the service to the Vaishnava or the Bhagavata, the person who speaks and lives. The message of the Bhagavat is the person Bhagavat. And then there's the book itself, Bhagavata, Shravana. We'll spend a little time on these two terms. Person and book, Bhagavat. According to Narottama Das Thakur, in one of his transcendental songs, Cha Diya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Payeche Keba. Unless one serves the Vaishnavas, one cannot get liberation from the material clutches. So, there's much more than getting liberation from the material clutches that is the byproduct of, or the fruit of, Vaishnava Seva. One becomes dear to Krishna by Vaishnava Seva or Bhagavata Seva. But it's preliminary. Free from material clutches, we'll hear in the verse for this morning's class, the sadhana process of freeing one from the material clutches, the impelling forces of material nature that have captured all living entities in this mature world. And there's Bhagavata Shravan. These two terms are found in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Those of you that like to recite verses, we can say them together. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravan Maturavas Sri Murtira Shradhaya Sevan Sakala Sadhana Shrestha E Panche Pnanga Krishna Prema Janmaya E Panchera Alapa Sangha. In the language of Krishnadas Kaviraj, one should remain in the association of advanced devotees, chant Harinam in their association, hear Srimad Bhagavatam from them, reside in Mathura, and worship the deity with faith and devotion. These 5 limbs of bhakti are the topmost because even a slight execution of them causes awakening of Krishna Prema. Now these are the words of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, which are very naturally derived from Rupa Goswami, because Rupa Goswami taught the process of bhakti in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and the process of bhakti involves 64 items, and these 5 are the most important or prominent, topmost, because even a slight execution of them causes the awakening of Krishna Prema. Now, it may take a while. It may not necessarily take too long, but the message is there's special potency or power. There's special potency or power in these 5 items. And we spent some time yesterday in question-answer session, and I was thinking a lot about those questions and the response. So I want to embellish a little bit the response. There's, according to Hari Bhakti Vilas by Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami, there's principles, or it's a how-to manual. I think the next several how-to questions, I'm just going to say, follow Hari Bhakti Vilas, please. You got all the how-tos that you're in one little nice book. So in Hari Bhakti Vilas's description of chanting, we spent some time yesterday. One of the questions was why, because our process is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, why not emphasis on reading or hearing and chanting Bhagavatam? It's in this verse. But the principle is, for this age of Kali, the principal vidhi is Namakirtan. And Namakirtan is assisted by the other 4. Now the dynamic of this verse that's on the screen is Sadhusanga comes first. And then from Sadhusanga the other 4 follow. There's different lenses to look at the process of bhakti. Certainly, the scripture confirms over and over again the primary significance of Nama Kirtan. So, our topic for this morning is Bhagavata Seva. So that's the Sadhusanga principle, because what is the benefit? The translation that Prabhupada gave to this verse is very clear. Sadhusanga, and in Sadhusanga, chant Harinam in their association. Hear Srimad Bhagavatam in their association. Reside in Mathura. When you reside in Mathura, there's many sadhus with whom one can associate. And worshipping the deity form, you can do that anywhere. But there's very special, very, very powerful. I was thinking further on Jumana Jivana's question, and I was thinking of this reference of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where he says, while there's this singular emphasis on the chanting of the holy name, Nama Kirtan, we don't chant Krishna's name alone without Harikatha. His explanation is, just like we don't worship Krishna alone, but we worship Radha Krishna combined, similarly, we chant the holy name and we hear Harikatha because it's like Radha Krishna, which was another question. Where's the ecstasy, the Ananda part? As Krishna's form is Satchit Ananda, And the Bhagavatam is Sat certainly, in Chit certainly. Where's the Ananda? It's the Radharani aspect, the female aspect. And Radharani bestows Ananda. She is and she bestows. And the Bhagavatam does also. It stimulates and awakens. And there's the Ananda aspect of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now yesterday, I plan to do this for each of our classes. We recited a verse from Canto 1, Chapter 2. So you see it on the screen. We can together chant the verse. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayat. Translation. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So we're honoring Srimad Bhagavatam as the refuge for this age of Kali. And one of the verses we're going to be focusing on this morning is this verse 1 to 18. Please recite responsively. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. Responsively. Responsively. Let's do it this way. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke. Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Let's go through the Sanskrit a little bit. I'm far from a Sanskrit scholar, but I've learned a few essential things. This word prayeshu is important. All the words are important. Prayeshu means almost to nil. And the question may naturally rise, why almost to nil? Why not completely? And the answer is, this verse is describing in sequence a bhakti stage. A bhakti stage is the last word in this sloka, Naishtaki. Naishtaki indicates the stage of bhakti of Nishtha. Nishtha bhakti is the stage of steady bhakti. And it's a state. There's stages beyond steady. But stage, Nishtha, is the consequence of having abhadras in the last word of the first line. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu, the abhadras. There's Bhadra, there's Subhadra, and there's Abhadra. Bhadra means auspicious. Subhadra means very auspicious, and Abhadra is inauspicious. Or another term that's used practically interchangeably is anartha. Artha and anartha. Artha, generally people it's translated as economic development. Before returning to the US, I was in Singapore. I'm really surprised I'm not jet lagged out to the max, because only a few days ago I came all the way from Singapore to California, hours at the airport, and then hours coming from California to New Jersey. I'm surprised I'm sitting upright. Whew. So while in Singapore, there's a group of devotees led by Radhagiri Dari Prabhu, disciple of Radhanath Maharaj, and they have a sangha of entrepreneurs. They call it the Artha Forum, because entrepreneurs want artha, wealth, economic development. So how to connect those in pursuit of economic development to transform it into the pursuit of Krishna consciousness. Dovetail for starters and then transcend for perfection. Artha Forum. So there's another meaning of artha besides wealth, and a simple definition is that which is wanted. Because many people want wealth. And why do they want wealth? Kama. Dharma, artha, kama. So many people, these four persons follow dharma because they want the prosperity that comes from artha. And why do they want the prosperity or artha from performing dharma? Kama. So just get an upgrade to better quality or more toys or more objects for sense gratification. Kama. Dharma, artha, kama. And when that doesn't satisfy, a little light may go on that says, enough of this. Moksha, please. And that moksha commonly is just a definition by negation. It's cessation of material existence. Cessation of material existence. Cessation of material existence. Nirvana. That's a common phrase, amongst Buddhists at least. Nirvana. What do they want? Cessation of material existence. And if your definition by negation, what's left after cessation of material existence? Nothing. Or we'll say it, make it nice. Nirvana. What's nirvana? Nothingness. So I'm going to go a little bit over to the perimeter and then come back. There's a very nice lesson in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Rupa Goswami was composing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And one very learned fellow named Ballabha Bhatta, not Ballabha Bhattacharya, but Ballabha Bhatta means learned, and his name was Ballabha, so Ballabha Bhatta, came to Vrindavan. He heard of the reputation of Rupa, so he went to meet Rupa to make his acquaintance. Rupa said, I've heard of you, Ballabha. You're a very learned person. In the course of their exchange, could you use your learnedness and render a little service? You could I'll make a copy of my manuscript available to you, this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And if you see the need for some improvement, some editing remarks, please let me know. Would you be so kind? Do that seva. Bhagavata Seva or Vaishnava Seva. So he said, sure. Some days later, he came back, again, some cordial exchange, and he said, I'd like your manuscript very much, but there's one section I felt a little uncomfortable with. Oh, what's that? You likened bhukti and mukti to witches. And it's a little strident to say bhukti and mukti are witches. You might want to change the word. Please consider. So Rupa's reply was, Thank you very much. Let me consider. Jiva, it's time for midday duties. Please accompany Bhagavata to the Jamuna so he can take his bath and perform his midday duties in the bank of the Jamuna. So Jiva Goswami, the obedient servant of his uncle, Rupa, accompanied him to the river Jamuna, and Jiva asked Ballava, could you explain what it was that you were uncomfortable with? In that statement made in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he said, well, certainly material sense gratification is like a witch. It really disrupts everything to do with bhakti. But to give the same characterization of mukti, mukti is honored throughout all the Vedas. So I wasn't comfortable with comparing mukti to a witch. And Jiva Goswami said, you have misunderstood. He didn't say mukti is a witch, it's the asha for mukti is the witch. Because the asha for bhukti or mukti blocks bhakti. And that's like a witch. Oh, very good. Thank you. I didn't read it carefully enough. And then when they went back, Ballabha informed Rupa, this disciple of yours, he's really sharp. I didn't understand the words that you wrote. I didn't read it carefully enough. It's the desire for. So the desire, this is the abhadra, or the unwanted thing, the contamination of heart. So when the contamination of aspiration for bhukti or mukti is taken away, what's left? Bhakti is left. When the negative is removed, there's the positive that remains. That's our bhakti teaching. And we're going to hear something further about that in just a moment. So, nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam, literally it means always or eternally. Prabhupada very gently, kindly has made it regularly, daily, which is a standard term in spiritual practice, is something that you do every day. It's standard. It's in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and it's in Rupa Goswami's writings, and it's, every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke. This is Shloke. It's referring, it's vocative to that person who is praised by choice verses. Uttama Shloka. Praised by is Uttama Shloke. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke. Bhaktir Bhavati. Bhaktir Bhavati. Bhavati is a nice word. Bhavati, one of the standard meanings is it arises. Bhakti arises. So the coverings are removed and bhakti arises. To the degree the coverings are removed, bhakti arises. Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki, or where it's steady or fixed. That's the translation. Irrevocable fact. Irrevocable fact, Naishtaki. Here's the translation Prabhupada has given to this verse. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, so Bhagavata Seva or Vaishnava Seva or rendering service to the person Bhagavat and as well as the book Bhagavat. So rendering service to the book Bhagavat is hearing it. But it doesn't, service doesn't stop with just hearing it. We're going to be spending some time together while we're here. The integration application segments. Purposely mentioned this yesterday. I'm mentioning it again deliberately. It's the service to the book is you hear the message and you apply the message. I'll say it again. Service to the book is you hear the message and you apply the message. According to your capacity and according to your realization, according to your trajectory of spiritual life, according to the association that you keep to your capacity, you apply the teachings. And that hearing regularly the Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service to the person, pure devotee, Bhagavata, all that is troublesome to the heart, that's abhadras, something unwanted. Abhadra, anartha, something unwanted. Almost completely destroyed, that's prayeshu. So this is just describing the nishtha stage. Loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So it's a stage of bhakti. And the means to get to that stage of bhakti, which is pretty much the stage that we're in, most of us. There may be some really, really new people, and there may be some, bhava bhaktas in the audience, but most of us are in this other stage, the sadhana bhakti stage, striving for this stage of steadiness. One of the most comprehensive explanations of this verse is found in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's writing, Madhurya Kandambani. It's a nice little book that's packed. And he describes of these abhadras, there's 4. And 2 of them are a little surprising. At least one of them for sure is surprising. There's abhadras that arise from past pious activity. Why? Because from past pious activity, what happens? There's fruits of piety. And the fruits of piety, if one's heart is not pure, the tendency will be to be the enjoyer, or try to be the enjoyer of the fruits of piety. So that's something that's unwanted. That's the asha, or desire to be the enjoyer. A bhukti that arises from past pious activity. Then another is much easier to understand. Fruits that arise, that which arises, abhadras that arise from past sinful activity. That's clear. And similarly, the fourth one in his list is abhadras that arise from bhakti. How's that? It's similar to the piety one. Supposing Subal leads kirtan very nicely, and somebody that hasn't heard Subal lead kirtan very nicely afterwards says, Subal, woo, 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 you lead such nice kirtan. And Subal goes, yes. At last somebody's recognized how nicely I lead kirtan. So it's a possibility. He's not going to think like that, but somebody might think like that. Or somebody, Dhruva. Before Dhruva came here, Gitanagari was at risk. Bhakti Tirtha Swami arranged for his samadhi out there just so that the property wouldn't be sold. Because his samadhi, he purposefully had his samadhi right next to the temple. And Dhruva, with Shakti and Bhakti, and his good wife Parijata, and and Devarita Maharaj helping him, and so forth and so on, has developed this project, and is continuing to develop the project, and not easy. But by empowerment, something that's not easy can become possible. So he gets a lot of Krishna points for his perseverance and the empowerment that Krishna has given him because of that perseverance. And it's such a nice project. Like Vrindavan, isn't it? And we're feasting on the labor, the fruits of his hard labor. So when you see him, you can say, "Oh, Dhruva, you're such a capable leader." And go, "Yes, finally you've read it." So that's an abhadra or some anartha from within. But there's 4 types, and I mentioned 3 of the 4 types. And the more difficult to remove or pernicious is aparad, because aparad doesn't get removed very quickly. The others can be quickly or more quickly removed by bhakti itself. And aparads can also be removed. That's what this verse is about. This nashtaprayeshu, abhadreshu. The abhadras, one of the categories is that which arises from offense. We mentioned this yesterday, so I'm speaking it again today so that it's clear. Aparada has 2 segments. Apa, that which drives away, and radha. Remember, not radha, but radha, one's desired perfection. Aparada drives away one's desired perfection. So that's not good. That's definitely something unwanted, some abhadra or anartha. It's the more pernicious is that which comes as a result of aparad. So Sri Radhika yesterday asked, what are the offenses that give rise to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam? And I mentioned, here's the phrase, anadara. There's adara and there's anadara. That's lack of respect or inattention. So you pay attention more easily to that which you have respect for. So we're spending some time on why should you respect Srimad Bhagavatam? We heard some of it yesterday. There's going to be more and more and more, because it's our access to Krishna along with the name and the deity form and the Vaishnavas who are serving both the name and the deity form in the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavata Seva. It's our access to Krishna for the sage. That was yesterday evening verse. And being not sufficiently respectful, anadara, it leads to aparad. And then aparad blocks or drives away, even worse than blocks, it drives away one's desired perfection. So we chanted the verse. Now we're going to hear a little bit Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. And the commentary is directly, there's some sections that are from his Madhurya Kandambini. This is a section that's directly from his commentary on this verse, which very much matches Madhurya Kandambini. The gradual weakening of this 4th most tenacious, difficult to remove, unwanted thing in the heart, that's the consequence of offense, aparad, that becomes the potential, if we hear with respect, it has the potential of weakening that unwanted thing in the heart, the knot in the heart, the aparad in the heart, as one progresses gradually towards the nishtha stage. That's what this verse is saying. And as one weakens the negative effect of aparad, that weakening goes up to, but even surpasses, goes beyond the nishtha stage, up until the bhava stage. So the nashta prayeshu is almost, it means there's some residual aparad effects up to the bhava stage. When the bhava stage is achieved, may you all one day wake up in the morning and you're at the bhava stage. But it's not going to happen just by waking up one morning and you're at the bhava stage. It takes some, it takes some very careful, not just more, but more careful. That's this carefully chanting, that's this adarat. It's respectful. What the Bhagavatam is, what the name is, what the deity is, what the holy dham is, the Vaishnavas are with proper respect and with due respect, then engage with each of those 5 items or personalities respectfully, and more respectfully, please. So then gradually the bhava stage can be reached. That is, the anarthas can be weakened up to the bhava stage, then they're gone. He adds to this particular commentary, in the nishtha stage, the mind can easily concentrate on the Lord. So sometimes there's a question, like, how do I know, am I progressing? Here's a litmus test. Just ask yourself, or ask your dear friends, or ask your spouse, or ask your children, how well do you think I'm doing concentrating on the form of the Lord, or the pastimes of the Lord, or the qualities of the Lord? How do you think I'm doing? Or just ask yourself. When the nishtha stage is reached, that means, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because he's more than there, one can concentrate. So they have to practice concentration, or respectful, not inattentive, but respectful, attentive hearing. And then when you hear with attention, you'll hear things that you didn't hear before. We'll say it negatively. When you're not so attentive, you can't hear subtle points. And the capacity to hear subtle points comes from attentiveness. And subtle points is not just like, you get 5 gold stars on your report card because you can understand subtle points now. It's not like that. That's the asha, the aspiration for being recognized as one who can understand subtle points. That's a mistake. That's a further covering of consciousness. It's appreciating more deeply the subject matter that's in the Bhagavatam itself. And it's bestowed, it's a reciprocation with the object, Krishna. And Krishna may reveal some things that are in the verse that you previously weren't understanding, just by being attentive. And having good guides, that's also most helpful, the sadhu sangha principle. And then you can easily concentrate. So there's the sadhana. And then the fruit of that sadhana is to come to the nishtha stage. Finally, almost finally, steadiness. This is a comment on this verse written by Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha. And in Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami, describing this verse, wants the reader to understand the power that bhakti has, surpassing the power of gyan. So just on the topic of steadiness, nishtha, he points to this verse and says, steadiness can be achieved in bhakti even before all unwanted things are removed, because bhakti is so powerful. In contrast, the steadiness by the jnani is only possible, I'll say it again, steadiness for the jnani is only possible when all anarthas, all unwanted things, all abhadras are removed. So, is Nandimukhi here? Nandimukhi is a wonderful resource in many, many ways. One of the things that she generally does, not always, but she'll raise her hand very mildly and offer some reflections on what she just heard, and sometimes, many times, make some comment on the teachings, the culture of Confucius and other wisdom literature type persons. And they have achieved to a degree of steadiness, minus bhakti. Rare. Bhakti not only is also rare, we know that from the Bhagavad Gita, but it provides a place of real shelter, whereas Gyan doesn't have a place of shelter. What's on the other side of material existence? If you're an atheist, because Confucius is, put it bluntly, is an atheist, but a cultured atheist. A very wise jnani. And the culture that he's presenting is good culture, except that the place of shelter is missing. It's incomplete, but cultured. And he teaches high values. And so it is the teachings of Confucius, A and B, are very much valued in China because it's atheistic. And B, it leads to good culture within the people, the population. But to get to the level of Confucius, where you're steady in that, all unwanted things have to be taken away. This is just a little embellishment on what Jiva Goswami writes in Bhakti Sandarbha. This verse is indicating the unimpeded nature of bhakti. Even anarthas are not completely gone, or abhadras are not completely gone. Unwanted things not completely gone. One is in the steady stage, or in irrevocable fact stage. So it's not easy to get there, but the power is there to get there. And it's an unimpeded power. Nice? I like it. And last, there's a nice description in Tattva Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami, and it's so nice I want to read. This is Anuchhed 46. Devotees who practice sadhana bhakti for some time with enthusiasm, patience, and determination. Sound familiar? Utsaha Nishchaya Dharyat. So he's a follower of Rupa. Sadhakas with utsaha nishchaya dhairyat gradually become cleansed of all but the most subtle traces of material desire. This is the asha concept. Material desire. Next, this verse. Their true spiritual desires begin to blossom. It's right within the verse. Into ecstatic bhava bhakti. Now this verse is nishtha, but it opens the door for further progress. That's the bhava bhakti stage. At that stage, the nishtha stage, their last contaminations will dissolve when it moves to the bhava stage. Their fundamental ignorance of their identity, as well as their misidentification with matter. They don't know who they are, and they're misidentifying with what they're not. Isn't it nice? I mean, the essence of Prabhupada's mission is to remind people of what they have forgotten, or to teach people who they are. Who are you, really? It's speaking of Bhava Bhakti. That's what Prabhupada came to give. He's just a messenger of Rupa Goswami, who came to give Bhava Bhakti. He's a messenger of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came to give Bhava Bhakti, Prema Bhakti. Which won't happen as long as there's coverings. So, to know who you are, that's what Jiva Goswami is describing. These last obstacles removed, devotees regain their spiritual remembrance with the guidance of their spiritual masters, plural, and re-enter the loving association of the Supreme. So, speaking about it, it sounds like piece of cake, right? And then comes our life. It's a little more arduous, a little more challenging, a little less glib, easy to say, and it's another thing to do. But this morning's verse is meant to teach us how this Srimad Bhagavatam is the true refuge in this age of Kali, despite the coverings and disqualifications and so forth, contaminations. Manda, samanda, matayo, manda bhagya, upadrata, bad and worse. Srimad Bhagavatam, taken up seriously, sincerely, respectfully, regularly, in the association of Bhagavata personalities and the Bhagavata book, along with, of course, the chanting. It's the package is really clear. Now we just have to take it off the shelf and read it and discuss it and apply it. That's what we're here for. Let's see if there's some discussion.
Thank you, Maharaj.
There's a science to the microphone.
Can you hear me, Maharaj?
Oh, I can. Oh, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you so much for the class. I think you've given us a lot to think about. I just had two small doubts I wanted to clarify. You mentioned that Vaishnava Seva, you gave the commentary that unless one serves Vaishnavas, then we cannot get liberation from the material entanglement. So how can we better serve Vaishnavas to foster our spiritual growth?
With palms folded. Any service for me? it's a mood, body language and heart language and practical activity. Now, we have many things that we're duty bound to do every day, every day, every day. So we do those things. But we're also eager within our limitations to serve the Vaishnavas. Now, at the end, for example, probably Raghunandan is going to get up and say again the same things he said yesterday evening. And there's lots of opportunities for service. If you want, you can go to such and such place and find some opportunity for service. Now, we're all busy and we're all having a nice time. We're meeting. So render service is, check that box. I'm not making any pointing fingers or, the opportunities are there if the heart is inclined. And it doesn't only mean wash the pots or cut the vegetables or serve prasad, or it doesn't only mean those things. It means, so being respectful to the Vaishnavas who you are interacting with and considering how your behavior is pleasing to Krishna and naturally then will be pleasing to that Vaishnava, and that's Vaishnava Seva also. Your choice of words, how you speak, that's Vaishnava Seva. So the range is broad. So your question was how to improve in your gesture of Vaishnava Seva, because without it, it's not my words, it's Narottam Das Thakur's words, but it's true. So there's a response to your question. Always an opportunity, qualitatively and quantitatively.
Thank you so much. And you also mentioned that there were 4 types of abhadras. You focused a little bit on aparad.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you could reiterate on the first 3.
What was the last?
Can you reiterate on the first 3?
I mentioned them, and I discussed them a little bit. Something that's unwanted that arises from sin. I didn't spend much time because that's kind of no-brainer. And something unwanted in the heart that may arise from pious activity. I mentioned that. The fruits of piety, one may want to be the enjoyer of it, so that wanting to be the enjoyer of it is the problem. That's the unwanted thing, the abhadra within. Or then the other was, using Subal as an example or Dhruva as an example. So you may be succeeding very nicely in your bhakti practices and bhakti seva. And, get some recognition, some title, some position, some honor, something. Oh, Prabhu, you asked such a nice question. Yes. So, those are the 3. And then there's...
So would you say like pride?
Well, pride certainly is involved in both the sin, the piety, and the bhakti. Nicely done. But that's part of, it's the byproduct of, or a symptom of, I guess you could say, it's a characteristic of something that's unwanted. Pride is certainly something unwanted, and it's real easy to be proud. Real easy. You don't have to try for it. It's real easy. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Subal.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I wanted to understand the application of Nityam Bhagavata Seva on the Anishtata stage.
The unsteady stage.
Unsteady. Prabhupada, in the purport, he defines this Nityam Bhagavata Seva as regularly attending the
Yes.
Bhagavatam class,
Yes.
and serving the Vaishnavas.
Yes.
Something that we, by Prabhupada's, arrangement, we're encouraged to do, or we're.
Yeah.
However, the application, because all these descriptions are for Nishta, but for the Anishtata.
It's just sadhana. It's just practice. You want me to elaborate on how this verse applies to the unsteady stage? That's your question. It's just practice. Abhyasa yoga yuktena. So you do sadhana, and sometimes you're more steady, sometimes less steady. Sometimes more steady, sometimes less steady. Sometimes steady for a long time. Sometimes unsteady for a long time. Circumstance, da-da-da-da-da. It's the principle still applies. It's just not yet at the stage where the anarthas or abhadras are reduced almost to nil. The prayesha word. So it applies getting to that stage progressively. And then the bell rings. Almost removed. No, it's not exactly when the bell rings, but it's progressive. Okay?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. My question is about the 4 types of the abhadras that come. Out of the 4, the one that comes from the aparadhas is very difficult to overcome. I feel because by committing aparadhas, it drives away one from bhakti. I mean, one may lose the taste for bhakti, but the bhakti is the only means to come out of those abhadras. It looks like it is, it looks like it's like,
A bind.
yeah. Yes, Maharaj. It's,
I'm hearing, so what's the punchline?
of course, we should not be committing aparadhas, but by engaging in the process, one may commit aparadhas. And then it is a difficult situation.
You're repeating yourself. What's the question? Articulate the question clearly. You have a clear question? Or just like I'm feeling squeezed, what do I do? What's your question?
Yes, Maharaj, yeah, something like that. So.
Okay, take the microphone away from him. Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. That's what we do. Stay with it. Stay in the association of devotees. In the association of devotees, you do what that verse says, or what you do in the association of devotees is bhajana kriya. That's how it's not like the bind stops, but the means to become relieved from the bind is diminished. The bind diminishes by staying with it. We didn't get into this situation overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight. So don't look for the quick fix. You look for the slow but steady. Right? Slow but steady wins the race. The hare and the tortoise. So it's just slow but steady. It's sincere. Small thing, sincere. Because you have faith in the teaching and the teacher and the process, so you stay with it. Although back to the bind circumstance. Or another answer, same answer, just expressed differently, is Nectar of Instruction, text number 7. The means taste bitter. How to get beyond the bitterness? Take the means. And then the qualitative application of the means. Two things. We already touched on it. So, he has a question up front, and I think we'll end after this question because of the time, our schedule.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Sometimes, many times in fact, the false ego, the percentage increases, and without my observation sometimes. Later on I check how to check constantly, how to arrest it, how to check constantly whether the false ego is increasing in me or how to do that.
Let me try to repeat back your question. Your question is, I have this subjective experience of false ego rising and becoming less prominent, and then it become rising, and you want to know how to have it less, how to have false ego less. Spiritual conception in the same sadhana bhakti. Your question is not too different than his question. You're just a specific application of his question. Now, false ego is a covering. It's the most subtle of the coverings. So it doesn't go easily. But what to do when it doesn't go easily and it's rising? You give him the microphone. Doesn't go easily. So there's the process. Here's a nice verse I like very much. It's in Canto 3, Chapter 25, Srimad Bhagavatam. Kapila Deva is describing devotional service. And Kapila Deva writes, or the verse says, that bhakti is so powerful that it dissolves the subtle body, which includes false ego. Bhakti is so powerful that it dissolves the subtle body, including false ego. So that's your solution. Easier said than done. But the doing is what you should do. Devotional service, bhakti, that has as its aspiration one thing: Krishna should be pleased. False ego gets in the way of Krishna should be pleased. And something else takes the place of Krishna should be pleased. And that's the problem. It arises from false ego. I should be pleased. Thank you. But that's the false ego. So we just do the sadhu sangha, bhajana kriya, anartana vritti again and again and again. Again and again and again. Because we have faith in it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone settle down, sit down just for 2.5 minutes.
Hare Krishna. So 2 months, if you have not yet,
Try again.
so if you have not registered yet, please see Shyamasaki at the Welcome Center. And also, there are lots of